So when I walk into churches, I see a lot more men than at any other time ever that I've been going to church. And I've been going since a wee little fella when I was 0 years old, and my mom was bringing me to church against my 1-year-old self. And I've been going, and obviously I recently filmed my testimonial about actually coming to Catholicism, not against my own will, but because of reason and my experiences that I went through that were not of God, unfortunately. So I am now a practicing Catholic, and now that I'm a practicing Catholic, you go to church and you kneel before the Mass, and then the Mass ends, and then you kneel after, and you say maybe an additional couple of prayers and everything else. And what I've noticed in the last couple of weeks as I've returned back to the faith is men wearing suits, men that are taking their faith seriously, and men that are staying before and afterwards to pray by themselves. Very interesting too, because I've never seen that in my life, whether it's older men, younger men, middle-aged men, but now we're seeing younger men returning back to the faith. Here are 2 or 3 reasons why. Number 1 is structure. Men need structure. That's why they join the military. That's why they play sports. That's why they love organization. They need structure. They thrive within structure. They're essentially a building. Without a foundation, they can't actually grow. They can't actually build on each other. And then when you talk about the ultimate organization, you talk about something that's been around for 2,000 years, known as the church. Catholic and Orthodox Church, the apostolic churches. The second thing that I've noticed as well, why men are coming back to the faith, is that there is a vaporous hole in the world. I'm a guy that loved everything of the world, whether it was chasing women, it was drinking, it was drug use, it was gambling, it was sports, it was stupid movies, music, working out, just BSing, and not doing anything besides materialism, buying the nicest suit, the new cell phone, going on this trip, that dinner with this expensive wine. But it's a vaporous hole that's never ending. There's always another season. If you're a sports guy, if you're gambling, there's another game. If you're watching a TV series, there's another series. If you're watching a movie, there's a sequel or a prequel or another movie. There's always another, especially me who is into personal development, which is my third reason. And personal development takes you just so far. It's the Jordan Peterson effect. It's essentially the intellectual that goes against a wall when it comes to anything outside of materialism and psychology, or theology is just this thing that you kind of bring into your life if you want to. It's this thing that you tap into if the questions upon the questions don't actually lead anywhere. In other words, if you ask Jordan Peterson or any of these intellectuals, let alone someone like Sam Harris, who's an atheist, you ask one of these folks, they all go materialism. They always quote the same people, Carl Jung, Nietzsche. Where are we going? The questions about life are deeper than, well, what do you mean about life? What do you mean about God? What do you mean? Come on, dude. You already know what we're talking about. We're talking about what created everything. What is the meaning of us? It's not accumulation, which is the fourth thing that I experienced myself. 2019 was arguably my most successful year of my life. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I had probably the best year health-wise, definitely the best year financially, and I was still empty. I was still looking for more. And I can't imagine someone that is just peddling the same stuff, even from a gentleman like Andrew Tate or a guy like Jordan Peterson, where it's, there's this drip that you're looking for to get your fix. It could be anything. For me, personal development. For me, self-help. The next idea about health, the next idea about a better website. Oh, we got AI. What's a better way to use AI? What's a better way to make sure that my life is easier? What's a better way to have my relationships on fire, my business on fire, all these things on fire? But there's this longing, there's this soul that needs to be cleansed of the worldly ideas. The soul that essentially says there is more, and it's not outside. And it's not this pseudo-intellectual, pseudo-Christianity, pseudo-atheism, agnosticism, something deeper than that. And they've been talking about it forever. I listen to people today and I just go, this is nothing compared to Aquinas, Augustine, DeSales, all these saints forever that have been talking about the sacred life, the devout life, this sacrifice that you make in your life. What do they talk about today? Well, let's fast. Well, I'm actually reading a book on fasting. Today, they only talk about the health benefits. Forever, they've all talked about the spiritual benefits, which is you are crucifying your flesh. Where does Jordan Peterson talk about that? Yeah, of course, Joe Rogan talks about getting into cold plunges, but he's just saying, I would love to live in a Christian world, but not become Christian. I'd rather believe that there was this guy, Jesus Christ, without actually reading a book, The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel, or The Resurrection, or the thousands of accounts and eyewitnesses that were not Christians, that were pagans, Romans, Jews, that were there, that wrote about it. And then you come to today, there is no next book. That's my conclusion after almost 400, 500 days away from YouTube, is that there is no next book. There is none. There's no next book that's going to satisfy the desire that I had going into personal development. I'm not saying I was the ultimate guy, but I was among the people I knew, family, friends, extended family, that was the ultimate consumer of self-development. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent to get that one last nugget in so many areas that I was lacking. Hundreds of hours with personal coaches, $10,000 here to be with someone, $5,000 to be at a dinner with 3 or 4 people just for that one piece of information. Oh, I got it. My life is, I got another book, conference, series I got to watch. And ironically enough, it literally took 5 years during COVID from 2020 to 2025 to literally eradicate my mind away from this lack, which is physical. So I personally think that Jordan Peterson will not go to obscurity, but I also don't think he's going to be as popular as he ever was, because men need those boundaries. Men need the guardrails. They need the blinders in life, because the narrow road outside of that is our desires, our pleasure, our lusts that we want to just grasp onto, whether that's food, that's plenty of illicit material. You can just go on Instagram, you can go on YouTube, you can go anywhere. You could just walk outside in New York City and you have your fix of food, of drinks, of, walking around in a state of numbness. So men will continue going back to the church. The tide is turning for men. And thank God for that, because if you have this 20-year hiatus of men away from the church, and now they're returning, and they are the ones that are structuring their lives and structuring their families and structuring their business and their friendships, and they're prioritizing sacrifice and fasting and prayer and Bible, gosh, it's freeing. I'm telling you, it is freeing. There's not any lightness in my life more than putting up a tiny boundary, this small little circle in which I operate. I don't operate with music that's secular. I don't watch movies, no streaming devices, no Instagram accounts that's not intellectually stimulating. Anyone that's famous, I could care less about, especially if you go down the rabbit holes, let's be honest. Everyone's put up there, propped in front of us for a reason, on purpose, not because they earned it, but powers that be, they want to, So men, come back to the apostolic faiths. Go to church early, take the Eucharist, go to confession a lot, often, read the Bible, sacrifice your fleshly, earthly, pleasurable desires for something greater. Offer your sacrifices and your sufferings up to the Lord. Stop this need to, because I was told mentality. That's relativism. Relativism says I can make up my own rules and laws in life. No, you can't. That's why we're unhappy. That's why we're drugged out and overweight and just can't focus. When you put this narrow blinders on, I am telling you, those men in your life that you meet at church that are also taking the word and the church teaching, the 2,000 years of tradition and liturgy and literature, the beauty and the truth, and they go into the natural law, I am telling you, there's a freeing mind of that. So, if you like this kind of content, Obviously, subscribe for more. I am going to be pumping out every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's the goal right now on Instagram, YouTube. I'm also just going to be a little bit more strict in the way I'm delivering these videos. It's not going to be this hody-doty, do whatever you want kind of thing, because I was in that. I was in the moral relativism. You do you, I do me. You got your own truth, I got my own truth. No. There's a natural truth. There's a natural law. There's an objective morality. There's an objective law that when you live within this law, I'll give you one example before I go. When you have your hand, it could be good or bad. I could punch somebody in the face on the street in self-defense or unprovoked. In other words, you have a foot, you have a mouth, you have you have eyes, you have ears. How are you filling your eyes? How are you filling your ears? What are you saying? Natural law says stop saying unclean things. Stop listening to worldly things. Stop seeing things that are making you lust. That's natural law. God created every iota and atom and gene and molecule for a reason. If we use it for that reason, we'll be happier, more content. Subscribe for more. I'll talk to you guys next time.